Thought I'd try out a new format this week and kind of do like a rundown of all the shit I've watched in the past month and kind of unscripted, unfiltered, just, you know, talking about stuff and freestyling it, seeing how that goes. And if it goes well, this might become like a series, and I'll do, at the end of every month I'll do one of these. And if it doesn't go down well, just leave some derogatory comments or just don't watch it, and I'll see that the views have tanked, and I'll get the message that this didn't go over well, and we'll never speak of this again. We'll forget it ever happened. I'll go back to the usual stuff. But it could be fun. So there'll be some recommendations. There'll also be some anti-recommendations where I advise you to steer clear of something that's really shitty. So anyway, we'll see how it goes. What did I watch in August? What have I been watching this month? Blockers. This was way better than I thought it would be. I thought I would just stick it on in the background or whatever, but I ended up just watching the whole thing. It was so funny, it was so much fun, it's had so much heart, and I think it would have been a huge hit if it didn't have such a crappy title. If it wasn't called Blockers, which is like it's a nod to cock blockers, and they can't put cock in the title because it's a movie. And the posters are going to be in this eye line of children. So they put like a picture of a rooster like in front of Blockers to be like cock blockers, but it's just called Blockers. It's kind of a shit title for a really great movie. And I went in thinking it was maybe going to be a problematic thing where there's these parents who are trying to stop their daughters from having sex, and it's like, but if it was their sons, they'd be like cheering them on. But the film addresses the double standard, and it was. I got the sense that the original script had been written by men, and it was supposed to be 3 dads, but they changed it so it's like 2 dads and 1 mum. So there's like at least 1 woman in the mix. And it was directed by a woman, directed by Kay Cannon. I feel like she came in and probably just revised out all the problematic stuff that must have been in the original script, just based on this premise. But they pulled it off really well. I thought it was a great fucking movie. I don't know why it's not bigger. I don't know why people don't talk about it more. It's a mad world. I can't believe it took me so long to get around to watching this. I watched Rat Race, the like rip-off version, before I watched It's a Mad World. I think what may have put me off is the runtime. It's like 3 hours long, which is crazy for comedy. But it's got this huge ensemble cast with a load of great like comedy legends in it, and there's a lot of fun like slapstick gags. And it kind of, even though it is very, very, very long, you might want to watch it in like 2 or 3 sittings. It sticks the landing with like a really funny climax that like brings everyone together, and there's a great like final punchline as well in the last scene. I mean, basically the message is laugh in the face of adversity, which is like kind of like a timeless, great, wonderful message. And yeah, I can tell why this is a classic. It's not, sometimes you watch the old classics, and you're like, why do people even like this? But this was great, this was wonderful. It was really fun. Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. I thought this sequel was a kind of naff, you know? They used up all the great ABBA songs in the first film, so the second film is all like B-sides. And I'm not even particularly a fan of the first Mamma Mia, but it was way better than the sequel. Lily James actually was surprisingly great as a young Meryl Streep. I thought she did a really great job, and she kind of like also kind of like brought her own stuff to the character for the younger, more youthful version of this character. But none of the actors playing the 3 dads, the young Colin Firth and the young Pierce Brosnan and the young Stellan Skarsgård, none of them had anywhere near as much charm as the original actors. It's like they may have a slight physical resemblance, but they've got like 1% of the charisma. It was just painful to sit through their scenes, and it's like you're watching young Meryl Streep like fall for these guys, and it's like, I get it when the guys are Colin Firth and Pierce Brosnan and Stellan Skarsgård. I don't get it when it's these young guys who are just unbearable. Peaky Blinders. I finally got around to watching Peaky Blinders because I was blown away by Cillian Murphy's performance in Oppenheimer. And, you know, Peaky Blinders is one of those things, it was a huge hit and very popular at the time. And then once it's over and people have stopped talking about it, you kind of feel like you've missed the boat and it's like not even worth watching it anymore. But I wanted to see more of Cillian Murphy doing his thing, and he's fantastic in it. I haven't been loving Peaky Blinders quite as much as like Breaking Bad or The Sopranos or some of the other shows it's like compared to. But I'm loving the actors, I'm loving the cast, and because it's not just, I mean, Cillian Murphy's fantastic, but it's like I don't know any of the actors' names, but Arthur, I'm loving Arthur, I'm loving Polly. And I didn't realize how many movie stars are in it. I knew Tom Hardy was going to be in it, but I didn't know Sam Neill was going to be in it. I didn't know Anya Taylor-Joy was going to be in it. Just a really, really, you know, really great fucking show. Really great cast. I love the soundtrack as well. I love how it's like it's like anachronistic. It's like they'll play like Black Sabbath, or they'll play, you know, it's Nick Cave does the theme song, and it's like cool. It's like you see these gangsters walking in slow motion. There's all this industrial stuff and sparks flying in the background, and they're playing just like The Wizard. It's cool shit.
Never talking, just keeps walking, 'cause in his magic.
David Brent, Life on the Road. I haven't seen this movie in a couple of years, but I'm a huge like Office fan, a huge David Brent fan, and this is kind of an interesting film because it's not the David Brent you remember from The Office. He's kind of like changed a lot. Like he's ever so slightly more self-aware now, and he's going to therapy, and he's like working on himself in a way that in The Office he didn't even think he needed to. And I don't know. It's kind of. I remember Life on the Road getting kind of negative reviews when it came out, and I can see why. I mean, like it's kind of hit and miss. Like some of the jokes land and some of them don't. It doesn't feel like there's any real reason for it to be a film, because it's not like particularly cinematic. It could have just been a series. It basically just plays like 4 episodes of a David Brent spin-off series, like just edited together as one thing. But that's fine. Whatever. It's like it's all good material. Peep Show. Sometimes when I make a video about a film or a TV show and I'm like dissecting it in the edit and picking it apart, and it kind of like ruins I can't like watch it again the same after that because I've like ripped apart like frame by frame. But editing the Peep Show video just kind of was a reminder of how great it was, and it just like confirmed how great it was, and I ended up rewatching it for the millionth time. It's just a show that never gets old. It's like it's so well acted and so well delivered that like even though you know the punchlines are coming, you know the twists are coming, and you know the the lines word by word, but it's still like the way they say it, or like the way the camera will pan over to reveal some twist. It's just like it just lands every time. It still makes you laugh, even if you know exactly what's going to happen.
Oh, you bloody bastard! Stop! Let me in!
They cloned Tyrone. This is like a fun, kind of stylish, kind of subversive sci-fi comedy where it was. I mean, I kind of struggled to follow the plot a little bit. I'm not so great with plots, especially when they're complicated. But the whole thing was just anchored by this incredible cast with really, really strong chemistry with each other. It's John Boyega's the lead, and he's fantastic. And then there's like Jamie Foxx comes in, and he steals every scene he's in. And Teyonah Parris is in it, and she's fantastic. The movie just has like a really great control over its like mind-bending mystery storylines, where it tells you just enough to like keep you on the hook while you're trying to figure out what's going on. It's made with this really old school style, like 70s kind of style, but with like a modern sensibility. It was just a really fun movie. As soon as it came on and the Netflix logo had like a film grain over it, I was like, I'm gonna enjoy this, and I did. You Hurt My Feelings. This is a great little character piece. It's Nicole Holofcener that directed it, and she's it's like her reunion with Julia Louis-Dreyfus after they made Enough Said with James Gandolfini. And now I loved Enough Said, so I really couldn't wait when this movie was announced. I couldn't wait to see what they were going to do next. And it's not quite like an Enough Said level masterpiece, but it's a really great just a really great little story it's all about trust. It's like Julia Louis-Dreyfus plays like an author, and she's working on a new book, and she's been giving draft after draft to her husband, and he's been reading it and giving her all this positive feedback, saying how much he loves it. And then she overhears him talking to his brother-in-law, and he's like, it's shit, it's the worst book I've ever read, it's terrible. Each new draft is worse than the last, it's the most awful thing I've ever read. And she's like, what the fuck? And so it kind of like, she's not sure if she can trust him after that. She's not sure, like, she's like, what can I believe this guy, it like throws the whole marriage into question, because she's like, I can't trust him anymore. And, it's kind of about like whether it's more important in a relationship to be supportive or honest, Do you just, do you give your honest opinion, or do you just keep encouraging them to keep going? So it's just a really great, really kind of heartfelt examination of relationships with artists. And I mean, I've been given plenty of negative feedback on my various little creative projects over the years. And when the negative feedback comes from a romantic partner, just for some reason it just stings a little bit more. It stings, the pain is a little bit worse. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus is obviously fantastic as always. She's kind of like, is so effortlessly funny, but like in like a naturalistic way. She's not like overplaying anything. She's just playing the character and the situation, and the things that are naturally funny about that just arise out of the performance. So yeah, you hurt my feelings. Wonderful little movie about relationships and like how seemingly the smallest thing can put like the biggest strain on a relationship. So good. It wasn't quite as good as Enough Said, but I might just be putting Enough Said on a pedestal. I haven't actually seen it in a while. But yeah, watch You Hurt My Feelings if you want to watch a movie about a relationship and like an examination of relationships. And also Enough Said. If you haven't seen Enough Said, you need to watch that. Talk to me. I did a whole video about this, so I won't harp on too much about it, but holy shit, this was a scary fucking movie. I think I'm pretty desensitized to horror at this point. Like, I've seen so many horror films. I don't want to like sound like a dick, but like, yeah, you have to get up pretty early in the morning to frighten this guy. But that was a pretty terrifying film. And with a great, I mean, I said this in the video, but great ending, perfect ending, like an ironic, like it really, really sticks the landing with its ending, which you want a horror film to do. When it's barreling towards this heartbreaking, haunting conclusion, the final scene really needs to like hammer the final nail into the coffin, you know. And with the very best horror films, like with Rosemary's Baby, you get there. And like, I'm not saying Talk to Me is necessarily as great as Rosemary's Baby, but it has that same principle and that same structure where it's you have this feeling of dread the whole time, and then at the very end, it's like, boom, fuck you. Clerks 3. I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan, a huge Clerks fan, but I didn't love Clerks 3 when I watched it for the first time when it came out. I just wasn't prepared for how dark it was gonna go, and I wasn't prepared. I feel like if you grew up with the Clerks films, then you kind of like identify with Dante or think of Dante as like a good friend, and to kill him off, it's like, how fucking dare you, Kevin? So yeah, I just didn't like how sad it made me, I guess, the first time I watched it, considering how lighthearted and how uplifting the first two were. But I liked it a lot more the second time, because I'm going in now knowing the dark direction it's going in, and where it's the horrible, heartbreaking place it's going to end up. And knowing where it was going, I just cried like a fucking baby. I cried through the whole thing, because it was like I remember the first time I watched it, and at the beginning you see like an R.I.P. Becky little tribute taped onto the till in the shop, in the quick stop. And I remember seeing that for the first time in the opening montage and being like, what the fuck? Tell me they haven't killed off Becky in between movies, and tell me that's some sort of cruel, sick joke. But no, they committed to it. She was dead. She was killed. Her and Dante's child and her were both killed by a drunk driver, like right after Clerks 2. And in Clerks 3, Dante has just been like in mourning for like 15, 20 years. And that was just depressing as fuck. You know, the first time I mean, still depressing as fuck now, but you go in expecting the depression. And I don't know. I mean, I still don't know if I'm kind of satisfied with that as the ending of Clerks. I do like the final shot is very sweet. We see Randall is back behind the counter and he's alone, but he's also with like Dante's there in spirit, and that's all very sweet. I don't know, I guess I admire how bold it was to end the trilogy that way. X2, or X-Men 2. It's tough to, these early X-Men films, like, blazed the trail for the whole superhero genre, really. Or, you know, I mean, obviously, Richard Donner's Superman and Tim Burton's Batman and Blade had all come before them, but they, as far as, like, the modern superhero movie formula goes, where you've got, like, a big team, and that all started with the X-Men films, and the kind of interconnectivity started with all these X-Men who coming out of each other's storylines. And it's hard to talk about them, because if you're going to praise how well they're made, then you're praising Bryan Singer, who's like a notorious pervert. So you don't want to be praising Bryan Singer, but X-Men 2 holds up. It kind of puts most modern superhero films to shame. It's fantastic. I think it's one of Hugh Jackman's best performances as Wolverine, as he's kind of like digging into his past and trying to figure out who he is, like where he came from. And he's like playing Wolverine as this like gruff, angry, badass, violent guy, but he's also like vulnerable in this one, because he's like Got this weird fucked up relationship with Stryker as like a father figure, kind of like a fucked up father figure. So I enjoyed watching X-Men 2 again, even if I had to grit my teeth when it says a film by Bryan Singer. Red Dawn. I'd never seen Red Dawn, because it always seemed to me it looked like American propaganda, Cold War era American propaganda. And it is, having watched it now, it fucking definitely is just American propaganda. It's this idea of like, if the full might of the Soviet Union tried to invade the United States, then like a group of teenagers, a group of American teenagers who had never picked up a gun before, would be able to successfully fend off the entire invasion and defeat the bad guys. But as a kind of wish fulfillment fantasy, I mean, it feels a bit icky talking about like a war scenario as like a fantasy. But like just the idea of like you and your friends get together and you gotta fight the bad guys and keep your town safe. Like I kind of loved it. And I love Patrick Swayze. I love anything he's in basically. So I had a good time with Red Dawn, even though it essentially is like really, really patriotic, jingoistic American propaganda. You know, I went along for the ride. Meg 2: The Trench. This is another one I've done a whole video about, so I don't need to keep going on about what I liked about it, but it's a really, really dumb movie, but holy shit, is it a fun time. All it wants to be is escapist entertainment. It's not trying to be like anything more than that, and it completely succeeds at being what it sets out to be. So I get why critics are slamming it and they're saying like, boo, it's just Jason Statham fights a big shark. But I want to see Jason Statham fight a big shark. That's why I bought the ticket. That's why I fucking went in and sat the fuck down and watched the movie. So who cares? Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. I haven't rewatched Beyond Thunderdome anywhere near as much as the other Mad Max films, because it is by far the worst one. It's like the others are like these gritty, grungy, dystopian thrillers. And then this one is like the kind of flashy 80s one, where it kind of just played into all the worst things about like 80s movies. But honestly, revisiting it, it's not that bad. It's not a masterpiece like Road Warrior or Fury Road, but it's a really well-made post-apocalyptic western. You know, about like this drifter who wanders from town to town and saves people. It's campier than the other Mad Max films, but it still has some really great car chases, and Tina Turner is wonderful in it. She's great. And I love the concept of the Thunderdome. I love the concept of the like fight to the death, where it's like this weird, extreme, violent satire of like competitive sports, where it's like 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. I love all that kind of stuff, like Rollerball and Death Race 2000 and The Running Man. Anything where people are getting killed for sport is a really good time. Baghead. This came on Mubi because of the sort of Greta Gerwig Barbie hype train, and she's in this, but this is very different than Barbie. This is nothing like Barbie. It's kind of like it's like a found footage kind of mumblecore horror film where these 4 actors decide, you know, we're not getting any jobs, so we'll just write our own material, we'll make our own movie and give ourselves an opportunity. So they go up to this cabin in the woods in the middle of nowhere to write like a movie, and they come up with this concept of a horror movie where, like they are right now, there's going to be a bunch of people in a cabin in the woods, and they start getting like stalked by a guy with a bag on his head, like a creepy guy just with a bag on his head, just starts kind of like hanging out outside the cabin and looking at them through the windows. And then a guy with a bag on his head shows up and starts stalking them and hanging out outside the cabin, looking through the windows. And they're all inside like, what the fuck is this? How? And they all think like one of the others has like arranged it as a prank, because they're like, we just invented this idea. How is there a guy with a bag on his head there? It was a really fun movie. It's like really creepy. It's like kind of a great like little kind of like horror comedy. And it keeps you guessing, like, because you're not sure, like, why is there a guy with a bag on his head here? Was it orchestrated as some kind of like sick prank, or what? Or is there just a guy there, or are we watching the movie that they have written? Anyway, wild stuff. Enemy. This was the last film that Denis Villeneuve made as like an unknown filmmaker. Before he did that, he had that incredible fucking hot streak of like Sicario, Arrival, Blade Runner, and Dune all back to back. And honestly, it's not a bad movie at all, but it's like, if I was watching Enemy back when it came out, and you were like, this guy's about to become like an A-list director and he's gonna make 4 amazing movies back to back, I'd be like, really? This guy who did this? Because it's kind of, I mean, it's an interesting concept. Jake Gyllenhaal plays dual roles, where he's this professor, I think. Yeah, he's like a professor, and one of his co-workers recommends, like, you've got to check out this movie. It's a good movie. And he's watching the movie, and as like a background extra, he sees a guy who is his exact double, a guy who looks exactly like him. So he like looks up this guy and becomes obsessed with him, starts like following him around, and starts like speaking to his wife on the phone, like pretending to be him. Which is all, I mean, that was all very fun stuff. It was all very intriguing. And then I started to get the idea that it's all a big metaphor for, like, he's guilty about cheating on his wife. So he's created like a whole second person so that, like, he can be like, well, I'm not cheating, I'm only sleeping with my wife. That other version of me is the one who's having an affair with this woman. And I could kind of get on board with that. And then if you don't want spoilers, just skip ahead for a second, but the final shot where Jake Gyllenhaal's talking to his wife and he goes to the bedroom to see her, and suddenly there's like a tarantula like the size of the fucking room, like cowering in the corner. And I was like, what the fuck? What the hell does that mean? You just about managed to infer some meaning in this weird, like, surreal movie. And then they go and throw you a curveball like that in the final shot. It's like, what the fuck? What am I don't know. I mean, I love Denis Villeneuve, and I love, he's a great director, and like I said, this wasn't a bad film. I don't, like, regret watching it. But I suppose it's like if you're frustrated when movies don't make any sense, then this probably isn't for you. If you have to, like, make your own sense out of, like, these puzzle pieces you've been given, then, like, this definitely isn't the movie for you. And, like, I'm pretty stupid. I'm, like, a little bit stupid, and I don't like having to come up with my own meaning. I want to have the meaning of the story spoon-fed to me, ideally in some exposition or just a really on-the-nose monologue. But Jake Gyllenhaal's fantastic in it. He's good. Two great performances, I guess, because he's two guys technically. But yeah, there was just some stuff that was happening towards the end where I started to feel like, what? Does Denis even know what this is about? Does Denis know what he's trying to say with this? And I don't know that he did. But then you watch, like, Sicario, you watch Arrival, you watch Blade Runner, you watch Dune, and it's like, the guy knows his way around a theme, the guy knows his way around a message. But I just felt like in Enemy it was a little bit muddled. But that might be my stupidity. It might just be that there was something really obvious. The big tarantula has a really obvious symbolic meaning that I completely missed. I don't know. The Devil All the Time. This was kind of like a big ensemble kind of Southern Gothic noir that came on Netflix a couple of years ago. With great cast, star-studded cast. You got Tom Holland is in it, Robert Pattinson, Bill Skarsgård, Jason Clarke, who I've been turned around on Jason Clarke the last couple of months. I was kind of a bit meh on Jason Clarke. I mean, he's obviously a fine actor, but I was never really, like, way into him. But he was fantastic in Oppenheimer. It's like that dipshit guy at the security hearings who's always just, like, grilling Oppenheimer and being an asshole. And he was fantastic in that role. And he's great in this, and Devil All the Time is this kind of, like, he plays like this psycho killer guy who, like, picks up hitchhikers and then, like, forces them to have sex with his wife before he kills them. And he, like, takes pictures of them. It's creepy as fuck. It's a great performance. I really just like the structure of it. It's like one of those films where you're introduced to this huge cast of characters, and they all seem to have nothing to do with one another. It seems to just be all disconnected from each other. And then gradually, as it unfolds, you start to see how they all connect to each other and how they all know each other. I thought it was really cleverly done. I think it got kind of, like, mixed reviews, but I thought it was really, really well done. Flight of the Navigator. This is a really fun movie. It's like a kind of like a sci-fi, coming-of-age sci-fi adventure where this kid is, like, abducted by aliens, and he comes back years later, and, like, his parents are older, and his younger brother is now, like, a teenager, like, he's older than him, and but he looks exactly the same as he did when he disappeared, like, 8 years ago. And then he kind of, like, is taken to this government facility for all these tests, and he ends up, like, meeting, like, an alien bubble thing that he can, like, talk to. And it starts to, like, fill in, like, where have I been? What the hell happened to me? And they just develop, like, a fun little bond. It's like E.T. if E.T. was a ship, like an alien ship, and not just an alien. It was a really fun time. If you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. Berberian Sound Studio. This was a weird one. Toby Jones is like a sound guy, and he goes to this recording studio to work on the sound effects and stuff for a new Giallo film. And it's not really quite clear like when the movie's set, but if it is Giallo, then I suppose it would be in like the 70s. But and it looks that way, but it's not like it could just be set today. It's not. It's basically all set in the studio, so you know what the fuck's going on. And so it starts to go on. He's making these creepy sound effects for this movie, and then the Giallo of it all starts to like bleed into his own life, and like he's like inside his own Giallo horror film. And then there starts to be this idea that like the projector has like a mind of its own, and it will like show you things. I mean, it was really, it was a head scratcher. I don't know if I completely understood it, but as a fan of Giallo and just as a fan of Toby Jones, a fantastic actor, it was great. It was, but yeah, very strange one, very creepy. Cargo. This was a great. I love the setup of like an adult is like taking a kid across like a really dangerous post-apocalyptic world, and they have to like keep the kids safe, and it's like it's a great way to explore like parental instincts and like the parental love, but in like a genre context. You know, like in The Road kind of has that, or The Last of Us, obviously I guess would be the most famous example. And Cargo is a great example of that, where like Ellie is 14 and like the kid in The Road is like at least like 12 or 13. But this is a baby. This is Martin Freeman. His wife is killed by this zombie plague thing, and so now he just has to protect his tiny little baby, which is like the most vulnerable person you could possibly have in this world. The zombies were really creepy. The way they kind of walked around was like very like it's hard to make zombies scary now. People are so familiar with them, you have to kind of like put your own spin on it. And in Cargo, just like the way they move, I don't know how they would have arranged that. They would have had some sort of like choreographer come in and work out how the zombies walk and like train the extras to do that. And it's got that classic thing where like the worst monsters aren't the zombies, the worst monsters are like other people. But I really enjoyed it. I thought Martin Freeman was great in it. And the baby was really cute. It's weird because it's like all the zombie stuff is so scary, but then they'll cut the close up of this baby and it's just like the cutest thing ever. It's weird. But yeah, so if you're a fan of zombies and adorable babies, then this is the movie for you. The First Wives Club. This was a recommendation by a friend of mine, and I'm very grateful because I fucking loved it. It was great. The cast has no dead weight in at all. It's kind of like the central sort of trio is Diane Keaton, Bette Midler, and Goldie Hawn. So there's like everyone's firing on all cylinders. All three of them are so funny and so much. Like I suppose Diane Keaton's kind of like the straight man, but even she has like she gets to have some big comedic swings and she really has fun with them. And it was just, it was a feel-good comedy, and like this whole notion where it's these three women who haven't been particularly lucky in their love lives, which I can relate to, but they find like a kinship with each other. They're like, we don't need a husband if we have each other, and that's a nice message. Dunkirk. As I was making my Christopher Nolan video, I realized I hadn't seen Dunkirk in a while, even though it's like one of my favorites of his. So I watched it again, and it's just so great. It's so well made. It's so well crafted. It's a classic example of like show don't tell. Like it's a history lesson. Like you learn a lot about the evacuation of Dunkirk. Some artistic liberties, but mostly realistic and mostly accurate. And it just kind of like puts you right in the soldier's shoes or boots. And gives you an idea of like what it would actually have been like to be on this beach trying to get the fuck out. Or what it would have been like to be in one of those Spitfires flying overhead, or what it would have been like to be in the civilian fleet that came in to save everyone. And it's just it's so wonderful how it kind of like captures the I didn't talk about this aspect in the Nolan video, but this is actually one of my favorite things about it, is how the way the ending kind of, like, it's, the phrase Dunkirk spirit is thrown around a lot, but you don't quite know, like, what does that even mean? But I think what it means is, in Dunkirk, all the soldiers are coming back on the trains and they're coming home, and they're like miserable. They're like, everyone's gonna hate us. We were defeated, and we've just come back, and we've had to flee, and they're gonna think we're such cowards. And then they get to the train station and everyone's just like, woo, yeah, you made it. And they're just happy that they made it back. They're just happy that they came home. They're not like, fuck you for having to leave Dunkirk. Fuck you for not beating the bad guys. It's just like, thank fuck you're all alive and you made it back here. And you did your best. And That was very sweet. Christopher Nolan's films usually don't have like a sweet ending. It's usually like a very morbid ending. But that's it. After like you've sat through like an hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes of like the horror of warfare and people getting shot and killed and blown up and ships getting sunk with people inside them, and it's kind of crazy that he can turn it around and end on like a hopeful note, but it's nice. Dangerous Minds. I must have listened to Gangsta's Paradise like a million times, but I never watched the film that it was from. Because you kind of, you look at the premise and you kind of like, okay, it's like a white savior thing. Like it's, there's this class of like black and Hispanic students who, in this like inner city school where it's like, and then this white lady comes in and fixes all their problems. And I mean, that is what it is. It is very much a white savior narrative. But Michelle Pfeiffer's fantastic in it as always, and it's not like, it doesn't like pander. It's not like the film understands that this notion of a white lady coming in to fix everyone's problems is like fucked up, and like a lot of the kids' parents are like, can you stop meddling in my kid's life, please, you white bitch? And the on-screen chemistry and the kind of like the bonds she makes with like a few students in particular really rings true. Like there's one boy, I can't remember his name, but she takes him out for dinner and she like lends him some money, and like their whole dynamic that they develop is really great. And I don't know, it's a good film. I mean, I'm as white as they come, so I can't really comment. That it might be the most racist movie ever made, and I just didn't pick up on like the microaggressions, but I really enjoyed it. That was great. And then I watched Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit, which was made an interesting double bill with Dangerous Minds, because it's like they're both movies about a teacher comes in and the students don't want to learn, but she inspires them to want to learn, and so they both tell basically the exact same story, but in very, very different ways. I've seen the first Sister Act a few times, but I don't know why I never bothered with the sequel. I think just because comedy sequels usually are like a huge letdown, so I just assumed it would be like that. But I actually thought it was really good. And I think Back in the Habit is like one of the best titles of all time. Such a great pun. But yeah, actually, I don't know if it's a funnier movie than Sister Act 1, although Sister Act 2, has its fair share of big laughs. But I think it actually might be a better story. So I really like the first one, where it's like she's in witness protection and she's like brings her own kind of like musical groove to like the very dry world of church choir, and kind of like inspires all these nuns to like express themselves through music the way she does. But in the second one, it's like the same thing, but she does it with a bunch of kids, and it's like, so like that dynamic is like just a little bit more heartwarming, because it's like, I don't know, anything where like School of Rock's my favorite fucking movie. Anything where a teacher comes in and inspires kids is just really gonna melt my heart. Whoopi Goldberg's incredible again. It's usually, sometimes with these sequels, the star comes back, but they kind of like, as a contractual obligation, they're making this sequel, so they kind of like phone in the performance. But that's not the case at all in Sister Act 2. I mean, Whoopi Goldberg is as committed in the second one as she was in the first one. And she's having a great time. She's always having a great time with this character, and you can't not have a great time watching it, because it's infectious. Mulan. Mulan wasn't like a staple of my childhood. I only watched it for the first time like 2 years ago. But I loved it then. I loved it now rewatching it. It's why, like, I watch Mulan, and it's like, it doesn't make sense to me when they're making these live-action remakes of old Disney films, and they're saying, like, we need to update these old films, and we need to make them more empowering to the women characters, but it's like, in what fucking way is Mulan not incredibly empowering? Like, they can point to a song and be like, the song's called I'm Gonna Make a Man Out of You. That's sexist. But it's like, in the context of the movie and in the context of the character that's singing it, it's like, it's just ironic, because it's like, he thinks he's turning like a boy into a man, but it's like, she's a woman. It's funny. I didn't realize it was Ming-Na Wen as Mulan the first time, until I saw her name in the credits. I was like, wait, what? That's her? But she's just fucking great. She's great in everything, and like, she has a great dynamic with Eddie Murphy as Mushu. I don't know if they were recording the lines together, but whatever they did, there's like a great friendship there. Mulan is like what Disney can do at its very best, where it's like telling like a great story, like a timeless story about a character who's really compelling, who you really like, who you really want to root for. And there's a lot of trials and tribulations along the way, but then there's a happy ending. There's like an uplifting ending. It's just great. I can't believe I didn't watch it until my 20s. What the fuck? What was I thinking? The Age of Innocence. This is one of the few Scorsese films I hadn't seen, so I thought I might as well, you know, watch it. It's Scorsese, how could it be bad? And it's not a bad film, not a huge fan of, like, the costume drama kind of genre, like, where it's, you know, it's in the olden times and everyone talks like the olden times. You know, I much prefer, like, in something like The Favourite or Marie Antoinette, where it's like, there's like a modern clip to the dialogue. The dialogue has, like, more of a quippiness and more of, like, it just feels more modern, whereas, like, fusty old-timey dialogue just, like, it's really stiff and it's really hard to get into. And I found that with Age of Innocence. It's like really well shot movie and really well made movie. And obviously Daniel Day-Lewis is fantastic. It's another great Michelle Pfeiffer performance. But I'm not, like, it didn't top Goodfellas or Taxi Driver. It's not like my new favorite Scorsese movie. It's just, like, it's fine. It's perfectly fine for what it is, and what it is isn't something that's necessarily my cup of tea. So there you have it. All the shit I watched in August. It was kind of a random, eclectic mix of stuff. Do you want to know what I watched in September and October, or should I do one and done with these? Was this a miserable failure, or was this a good idea? I guess let me know in the comments. Or some people skip the comments and email me directly with their thoughts and opinions. So I guess either or is fine.
It's time we wrote something back. Type this shit down. All you motherfuckers are gonna pay. You are the ones who are the ball lickers. We're gonna fuck your mothers while you watch and cry like little whiny bitches.
Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked the video. Remember to like and subscribe and click on the little bell. And also seize the day and call your mom and be kind to yourself.